or letting me know that the mic was muted this entire time. That must have been a very awkward 15 minutes of me just chatting with no one hearing. So let's start right again from the beginning. Hello, I am your bard, your storyteller, your teller of tales, your curator of stories. I am Archibald, and welcome to episode 20 of Fabously Creepy Stories. We have so many errors already today, don't we? And thank you for that lemon, Nexus. Oh my, it has been quite the night with technical difficulties and just Archibald difficulties here. So as I mentioned, unless you're a lip reader, which really, how can you read my lips through here? I have a series of short stories, 2-sentence stories rather, and a slightly longer story from a Reddit friend that decided to donate a story to today's episode. So this will be a short story series today. So, again, let's get right into the stories. Our first line. I was having a pleasant dream when what sounded like hammering woke me. After that, I could barely hear the muffled sound of dirt covering the coffin over my own screams. I don't believe I had a joke for that one even the first time around. Next lines. I woke up to hear knocking on glass. At first, I thought it was the window until I heard it come from the mirror. I believe the Spirit Halloween store has self-knocking mirrors. Perhaps they forgot. I can't move, breathe, speak or hear, and it's so dark all the time. If I knew I'll be this lonely, I would have been cremated instead. I'd imagine cremation wouldn't have been too much different. Unless you spread yourself across a playground, then you have plenty of company. Next. There was a picture in my phone of me sleeping. I live alone. Clearly that person needs to make sure somebody else is paying rent. My wife woke me up last night to tell me there was an intruder in our house. But she was murdered by an intruder 2 years ago. This next one I believe we could all relate to. I never go to sleep, but I keep waking up. I think that's just a fact of life. The last thing I saw was my alarm clock flashing 12:07 before she pushed her long, rotten nails through my chest, her other hand muffling my screams. I sat bolt upright, relieved it was only just a dream, but as I saw my alarm clock read 12:06, I heard my closet door creak open. Perhaps it was that person that took the picture of you on the phone. Next we have... She went upstairs to check on her sleeping toddler. The window was open, and the bed was empty. I suspect the stork wanted a refund. I can't sleep, she whispered, crawling into my bed with me. I woke up cold, clutching the dress she was buried in. Now I heard of sleepwalkers doing strange things, but a sleep digger? I began tucking him into bed as he tells me, "Daddy, check for monsters under my bed." I look underneath for his amusement and see him, another him, under the bed, staring back at me, quivering and whispering, "Daddy, there's somebody on my bed." Perhaps he had twins and just forgot about it. After working a hard day, I come home to see my girlfriend cradling our child. I didn't know which was more frightening. Seeing my dead girlfriend and stillborn child, or knowing that someone broke into my apartment to place them there. I believe the next question would be, is that person still there? You get home, tired after a long day's work and ready for a relaxing night alone. You reach for the light switch, but another hand is already there. It seems so many of these stories are about intruders into your home. I always thought my cat had a staring problem. She always seemed fixated on my face. Until one day, when I realized that she was always looking just behind me. In our final 2-sentence story. My daughter won't stop crying and screaming in the middle of the night. I visit her grave and ask her to stop, but it doesn't help. I believe there's other problems that person has with that. But now on to the main course of tonight's Fabulously Creepy Stories. This we have found on Reddit/Scary Stories, and has been written by and given permission to us by Mad Hatter 006. That's Mad Hatter 006. So I'd like to thank him for allowing us to read the story tonight. So let's begin his tale. Excuse me. Ah yes, this story is called Take a Walk With Me. I want to chat with you. I want to tell you how I got away with murder. Thank you so much for that diamond, Shaolin. It is so very much appreciated. And it really does help this channel. And I hope you have the most wonderful nightmare tonight. So let's begin our story. Do you love your family? Do you really? Think about it. Take a moment and walk with me. Family is forever. Family is a group of people that are supposed to love, guide, and protect you. So people have said. Family is bound to you for eternity by blood. With how many people that had to come together to make you, just you. You're drowning in blood, sweetie. And so am I. My family was on a different level of messed up. My father was a car salesman who got high on crack cocaine and screwed his co-worker, smiling in the faces of his neighbors who whispered about his sexuality behind his back, while he's thinking he has everyone fooled. That idiot. My mother wasn't innocent. In fact, she was worse than my dad. To everyone else, she was the unassuming second-grade teacher who went to church every Sunday and attended a book club with her friends. That liar. She was horrible. A righteous person who would get friendly with her brother after her husband went to sleep. Beat me with her precious brown leather Bible in hand whenever I took too long doing the dishes. She will lock me in the basement for hours and hours. She once left me in there till the crack of dawn to the middle of the night. And when she let me out, she smiled in my face and told me, "I honestly forgot you were there." I begged for food, but she told me it was too late to cook, and she shouldn't have to waste food on me. Waste? My brother got the better treatment from my family. My father and mother didn't beat him like they would beat me. They didn't starve him like they would starve me. He stayed in his room on his computer, shirtless sometimes while he talked smoothly to some man or woman on the other side of the camera. The money he got from his cam sessions got him weed, white rum, and a car that he didn't have a license for. Bought secondhand from a friend from somewhere in Chicago. Regardless of the law, he would take it out to practice. He didn't care for my curled up, screaming and scared self who was thrown into the trunk of the car. He would drive around for hours and speed up when he saw a speed bump in the road, then laugh as he heard me cry in pain. That's how I broke my arm. This was all before I turned 7, just so you have a better image of how messed up the story gets. Are you ready? It was a cool Tuesday afternoon. My backyard was covered in leaves. Orange, yellow, red. I had just turned 15 and it was the middle of autumn. I was alone, and as I sat in the back porch steps, not just alone on the steps, but there was no one else home. It was so peaceful. The kind of peace you wish would never go away. But good things never last forever, do they? I could hear my mother's heels clicking up the sidewalk as she got to the house. Her loud laughter let me know that she was on the phone, and she only ever genuinely liked talking to one person on the phone: my uncle. With her keys jingling in the lock, it was such a smooth transition for me to close the back door and hop up into my room. My house had no pictures. The walls weren't ever decorated with anything, and it always smelled of something foul. No one in the house ever thought to make memories. Everyone was too busy trying to forget. But forget what? It's not like they've been suffering. It's been the lightning rod for them for as long as I've been breathing, but there's no pity for me. Just abuse. Passing my brother's room, it now had the permanent smell of weed and burnt rubber. I made sure to move quickly and quietly when I passed his room. His attention on me was never good, as I've learned over the years. How do you explain to someone that you've created tactics to move around your house, just so you won't have to be noticed by your family? All for the sake of your own safety, your life. How do you explain that? You can't. Or, at least that's what you're taught when you're young. Your mother scolding you for tattling and telling you to keep your mouth shut. Whatever happened in the family, stays in the family. Snitches get stitches, my brother would say. I hated my brother. I would always have to escape to my room whenever they came home. I would always have to hide, listening carefully at the door for anyone in the hall so I could run to the bathroom without getting noticed. Watching which floorboard I stepped on at night on my way to the kitchen, sleeping with my alarm clock under my pillow to get an earlier start so I could avoid everyone else. Taking showers at the break of dawn where everyone was still too deep in sleep to be disturbed by the sound of spraying water. When they were home, there was no such thing as peace. But I will get to the point. That Tuesday night was the night that my worldview changed entirely. Humans are naturally wired for survival. You do what you must to keep breathing. But you can only handle so much before you snap. My mother had decided to throw a party. It started from the middle of the afternoon and went on late into the night. My father, mother, and brother all sat in the living room with our neighbors and looking at them. You could almost trick yourself into believing they were perfectly normal. They laughed, smiling politely, and entertained their guest as everyone drank and ate gross goat cheese and saltine crackers. But of course, I knew better. My father wasn't fooling anyone with that long sleeve he was wearing. He was trying to hide the point of entry, all while looking sleep-deprived and waifish. The veins on the side of his forehead were bulging with a need to run to the bathroom and just do one more line. To get through the evening and I'll quit. My mother's liver was giving out. She was once skinny with gentle curves, like a supermodel if she twisted her body in the mirror long enough to fool herself. Now she was bloated as a whale. None of her clothes no longer fit, and she had to go out to buy a new wardrobe. My uncle, sitting next to her, but he entertained her neighbors from the next door instead, laughing flirtatiously and laying a hand on her knee. Our neighbor flirted back with him, tossing her hair over her shoulder and battling her eyelashes. Our neighbor was married to a Marine, and my brother? Sitting with his friends, all drinking beer and talking as if they had anything to talk about. None of them had jobs. None of them had families to take care of. None of them had stuff to do with their lives except smooch off their parents. They could only talk about memories from high school, which quickly got them bored. Then, they were reduced to only sitting in silence while everyone else talked to them about their own lives. I sat in my room, avoiding them all. Those idiots, sadists, adulterers, and liars. Every one of them is the next person's paramour in one way or another. By the time the party had died, it was 12 o'clock. I knew it wouldn't be a good night based on how hard my mother stomped up the steps. I saw from my window my uncle escaping to my neighbor's house, his hand on her ass, and she giggling drunkenly. My mother had just fell out of favor. Funny. She screamed my name and demanded that I come to clean up her mess. Moving down the hall to my room, it was like a horror movie. Her slow steps moving closer and closer to my door. My arms folded over the windowsill as I looked into the cold night. I could still remember the feel of the wind on my face. My door was thrown open by my mother, her long hair hanging from her face, and she desperately on her wine glass. She stumbled and swayed in the doorway. Her eyes couldn't even find me. She yelled for me to come down and clean up her mess again. My brother yelling from his room for her to shut up. As I looked at her, as I watched her, I got this strange feeling. A feeling that could only be described as sadistic, but also empty at the same time. It was like a dying candle in the wind, a wind that just kept on coming. Her eyes found mine, and she stumbled into the room as she took a sip from her wine glass. She called my name, and when I didn't respond, she began an onslaught of insults and threats. The same insults and threats that I have heard for all of this time I had been under her care. It wasn't anything new. Her mocking, taunting, vicious insults were nothing new to me anymore. The wind stopped and the light of the candle flickered back to life, with plenty of wax left. It was like a wave of clean, fresh water was thrown right over me. I stood up, my eyes scanning her blubbery form from her heel to the crown of her head. She did just the same, mocking me as the wine in her glass sloshed around, provoking me with her words. My brother screamed from his room for both of us to be quiet. Fine. I'll be quiet. I'll make her quiet. I lunged quickly, pushing her onto the floor. Her size betrayed her. She was too big now to move quickly. She struggled to stand as I calmly walked to my bedroom door and locked it. Her wine glass had fell out of her hand, and the cup broke. The smell of wrestling coated the dull brown carpet, mixing in evenly with the foul smell of the house. One tall shard of glass laid near my feet. I picked it up and made my way over to my mother. The candle was burning bright now that the wind had finally stopped. An easy slit across the throat prevented her from screaming too. The shard cut my own fingers as I made myself into a butcher for my pig of a mother. I had felt this wave of ease coming over me as I stood over her now mutilated body. I heard my brother's door open. With every step he took to get to my room, memories flashed behind my eyelids. His abuse and torment, his cruelty. Every step brought a new memory back, and soon enough, he was banging on my door. There weren't enough steps to match how many times he'd broken my arm, or fractured my ribs. There weren't enough steps to match how many hours a day I'd spend in the darkness of his trunk. I'd remember the summer, in the darkness, him zooming over the speed bumps, me hitting my head and blacking out. He threw me on the front lawn when we got home. Didn't even bother to take me inside, but instead left me under the bleeding hot sun. Watching as my mother's body emptied out her blood, soaking into the carpet as her faces fitted perfectly into a look of pain and fear. Strangely enough, it's the prettiest she's ever looked. My brother continued to bang on the door, banging continuously, and demanded that I open the door. So I did. And I delivered the same gruesome death to him too. A slit across the throat. But instead of cutting him open, I beat him until every bone I could get to was broken, stomping on his arms and his legs, hard with my foot. I'd taken a page from his book and aimed for the most vital areas. The wind stayed down. I dragged a shard of glass on the wall, cutting into the dirty blue wallpaper. Then I noticed something. I didn't hear my father coming up the steps, nor did he complain about the noise my mother was making. I searched the house for him, just to see if he was even home. Passing through the living room that was so messy with cheap wine and gross snacks, pillows thrown about and furniture moved across the room to make space for a dance area. I saw the guest bathroom light on. The door was cracked open and I could see a shadow. I got close to the bathroom and saw the dirty brown loafers my father wore. Then, his legs were stretched out in front of him and almost peeked out the doorway. Pushing open the door, I saw his body laying against the sink. A lighter sat by his bent knees, a burnt spoon in his hand, and a syringe still jammed into his left arm. His tie was laying crumpled up next to the lighter. And he wasn't breathing. It was bound to happen sooner or later. How convenient that it should be now. I left him there. The state of his own demise should be left alone. It is the only thing that he had in his final moments: weakness and addiction. I made my way out of the back door, kicking it closed with my foot, walking around to the side of the house, and I wiped my fingerprints from the shards of glass and made my way over into the neighbor's house. She didn't even have the decency to close her living room curtains. My uncle was pumping himself into her, and she had her legs spread open on either side of her husband's recliner. If only she knew where the pig had stuck his thing into before. I threw the shard of glass into her rose bushes and continued on down the sidewalk. I'm sure you're wondering now what happened. Did the police find me? Where did I run to? Do I feel guilty? Sweetheart, I made the national news. It was everywhere. A brother had killed his sister and her entire family after a night of partying with her neighbors. The weapon was found in the rose bushes of the neighbor of his sister just across the street from the house that they were murdered in. Both their faces were plastered on the 5 o'clock news. He pled his innocence, but texts between him and his sister were leaked and their incestuous relationship was revealed to the public. The neighbor wasn't off the hook either. The police guessed he killed them out of rage and jealousy sometime after their party, and went to go to make a victim of the adulterous neighbor lady. It's amazing how easily people can be fooled. It's also amazing how easily someone can obtain a fake ID, and a fake birth certificate, and a fake passport. Cutting hair is easy as well. Isn't that what people do anyway when they want to feel like a new person? Now, for the last question. Do I feel guilty? No. Absolutely not. In fact, during the whole ordeal, from pushing my mother to the floor to walking off into the night, the only thing I could feel was relief. It's the feeling of being raised in a cage and then finally breaking free. Sweet, sweet freedom. So no, I don't feel the slightest bit guilty. Never even for the neighbor lady who made a stupid decision to cheat with the wrong man. Do I not feel guilty? Besides, if you had the chance to kill your demons, I'm sure you'll do the same. You're already drowning in blood. What's the difference if you spill more? And that is the end of that tale. I would like to thank Mad Hatter 006 again for allowing us to read this story on Fabulously Creepy Stories. And with that comes the end of the stream. Thank you all who have showed up, and I hope you all have the very fabulously creepy nightmares tonight. Choppy will be back tomorrow playing a Space Marine game, and next week hopefully we'll have new stories to tell. Till then, sweet dreams.